Welcome to Elevate Today with Chris Tompkins. Today's guest is Kari Lerner out of Southwest Florida. We hope you enjoy the show. Thank you for joining us.
You're in Florida and it's a different time zone. So and you're running for office. So thanks for giving me this time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think your voice is really important. I think what you stand for is really important. So I'd like to begin. I started asking some questions. I think we're ready. Are you feeling good?
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ask me the hard questions. Let's do it.
So thank you for joining us on Elevate Today with Chris Tompkins. I'm Chris Tompkins. I'm your host. And our featured guest today is Kari Lerner. She's out of Florida, out of Southwest Florida, Cape Coral, as a matter of fact. And we're over here in Long Beach, California, airing our show. So Kari, what I'd like to do is begin with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I did grow up here in Cape Coral and moved away to New Hampshire, where I raised my family. And I served as a New Hampshire state representative in the fourth most Republican district as a Democrat. When I ran, no one gave me a snowball's chance of winning. The powers that be kind of laughed that I was running because they said, that's not a winnable district. And I won. And I was able to serve. And I'm proud of the fact that when I did serve, I co-sponsored a bill protecting children from child marriage that when I came aboard did not have legs. And I got some press for the Republicans were very angry that I won. They didn't like me, but I earned their respect. And when the bill finally hit the floor, it passed with one of the highest bipartisan votes of that entire session. And that's what we need to do. I'm done with the chaos. I think Americans have seen that chaos is not in our best interest, that we need integrity in our legislative representation. And we need people who are willing to do the work, who are there to serve their constituents and the people, to serve the people and not themselves.
Okay.
And, that's what you have with me. I'm 64 years old. I am not building any career. This is my hometown that I'd returned to. And I see the need. I have been knocking on doors in all of the various diverse communities, financially diverse, racially diverse, and a lot of the needs are the same across the spectrum, and they're not being met.
Now, Kari, tell me you have family in Cape Coral. You've got a husband, you've got adult children, grandchildren, and
my grandson lives in Massachusetts.
Okay, but your family is for the most part
my
here.
First family is here. My parents are both still alive. They're 88.
Wow.
And my mother does have dementia, so I help out my dad as much as I can. That was a big motivating factor for coming home. And I have siblings here with their adult children and their children's children, and my uncle's here with his whole family. So my family it runs through the fabric of this community.
Exactly. You've got a huge stake here.
Mm-hmm.
You care about this community. You grew up here.
Do.
And you were also were you a substitute teacher in Florida?
No, I was a substitute teacher in New Hampshire for 9 years while my children were in school. I worked as a substitute teacher for middle school and high school men. And I did that because no one else wanted to do it. It was a regional high school, so they had 42 math teachers. So I was as busy as I wanted to be. And I really enjoyed working with students. So many students would say, oh, I'm bad at math. I can't do this, have just no confidence whatsoever. And just working with them outside the box. The teachers would be teaching something and I would say, yep. Especially in algebra, I would say, follow these steps, memorize these steps, and you're going to get the right answer. I would go home with what the kids were doing and I would just write it out. And I'd work with them in the math lab. And there were a lot of students that I helped get through Algebra 1 and 2. Just, there are a lot I mean, it's science that shows us that not all students are developmentally able to understand the abstract ideas necessary to be successful, to really successfully own algebra and understand what it means. So, I
let
at
me
least
interrupt.
gave them tools that they can be successful.
Exactly. I want to talk about that because you understand what it takes for our society, our kids to be successful in this new age, especially with the entrance of AI coming in and all these other things that are happening in technology. Math and science is critical. And because you were a math teacher, that means evidently you got some kind of high math aptitude, maybe yourself going on there. I don't know. But because you were a math teacher, you were dealing with the kids in the middle and the high school. You understand the importance of education.
Absolutely.
Right.
Education, and I believe that education is a national security issue. If we are to be able to compete, continue to be on the cutting edge of industry and the global economy, our students need to have a quality education. And, not every student is going to be able to excel at every topic, but we need to make sure that we're providing the tools that students can be successful, that we're providing the individualization necessary, which is really hard to do when you have 30 and 40 students in a class. It's very difficult to provide the support that a lot of students need. And that's why it's important to have math labs and where students can go and say, hey, I'm just not getting it, and have knowledgeable individuals there. Lots of times students would volunteer in the math lab and students would come in and they would help other students with their homework and they being able to speak their language with them. And the students that were helping would get credited for that,
Nice.
because at the end of the day, everyone wants to be recognized and wants to, we can't expect our students, we can't take it to the level though where we expect the students to be teaching other students either. I mean, they can help, but at the end of the day, you need adults to be in there and to be engaged and encouraging students, because 9 times out of 10, when you have a student who says, oh, I'm just no good at this, they might be.
Right.
They just haven't been given the proper tools.
Right. So,
and I think that translates really well to everything that we do. There's this whole discussion about the government, states' rights versus federalization of a lot of things. And at the end of the day, it is my belief that there is an umbrella of rights and protections that as an American citizen, you should be entitled to no matter what state you live in. I think that we need protections for our LGBTQ plus community.
Okay.
We need protections for women. Okay, I'll stop.
But we're going to delve into who you are deeper. That is clear. Kari Lerner is running for Congress down in Florida, period. Let's put it out there.
Okay.
But why is Kari Lerner such an important person to me? Because Kari Lerner is an amazing human being, and I want you to know how amazing she is. Kari Lerner is committed to her faith, her community. She's been a realtor for 37 years down there, not only in Florida, but in 3 states. What is it? New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Florida. So you're national on and regional, with real estate. So you have built up the Cape Coral in the Southwest Florida market and participated in its growth and its continued growth that's happening now. And you do it in a very significant way because I know you. And I know how you do things, Kari, and you're very good at it. I want everyone to know who Kari Lerner is.
Well, I did graduate summa cum laude with a degree in business administration.
Well, there you go. That's why okay, here we go. So let's talk. I want to move to, seems strange, but it isn't. You made costumes for school plays.
I did. See a need and fill it. My daughter it was the Music Band, which is a fun play. to do in this was in middle school, and it was a very small local school, and they had kids. It was a K through 8 school, and they had kids of all ages involved in the plays every year. And I made 80 costumes. It was so much fun. The period pieces I sent away and got patterns that were appropriate for the period of the play. And I just had a great time. I spent an entire week where dawn to dusk, I was just sewing, making costumes, and then I fitted them with the kids, and then came back and did all the stuff. And to see those students, they were just, the costumes made such a difference in how seriously they took the play. They just felt so. The Piccadilly ladies, especially, which was the fanciest part. I know, pick a little, talk a little, pick a little, talk a little, cheap, 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 talk a lot, pick a little. It was all the matrons of the village, and so I got to go crazy with lace and fabrics and stuff. It was fun. I had a good time with it, and they still have those costumes today. To use in other productions. And
you recognize the importance of the arts.
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
Absolutely. The arts make life worth living.
Yeah. Talk about that.
And the arts are one of the things that separate us, from sustenance living, quite honestly. I mean, even in sustenance living, look how important the arts were to BC individuals. You see cave paintings. People have always been driven to the arts. My youngest she likes to work in acrylic. She does painting and sculpture, but she also is classically trained at the New England Conservatory of Music prep school. She studied voice. Wow. Because she's just artsy across the board, but she wants to get her degree in botany, because arts and science are closely related.
Yes.
If you teach a child to play an instrument, if they learn notes, they learn how to read music, that's math. That right there is arithmetic. That's math.
Okay.
And studies have shown that students who are exposed to music, learning to play music or sing or any of that, it makes it easier for them to understand and absorb mathematics.
So we're coming back full circle. The importance in education, not only is it the math and sciences, but it's also the arts.
Absolutely.
Right? And we must have both, because there's been a sort of a movement away from the arts in our school systems.
Well, I think that is, remember, education is state control. That education, different states have different ways of managing their education budget. Some are by town. Florida is by county. In Florida, the state dictates the curriculum. Teachers, school board, superintendents have very little say on the curriculum that is implemented. They are given the curriculum. They're told, you will teach this on this day, and this is how you will teach it. And quite honestly, I find that counterproductive for actually educating the students. You might be able to teach them to the test, but they're going to lose out on critical thinking skills, on the opportunity to question. This stance that the Florida legislature and governor have taken on whitewashing history, not teaching history as it happened, because it might make some students uncomfortable. Well, history should make you uncomfortable. It's how we learn. How do you not prevent the atrocities of the past if you don't talk about them and acknowledge what happened? Human history is ups and downs, great leaps of science and technology and art separated by very, very dark periods.
Right.
And so in order to, um, in order to lay a solid foundation for our students, they need to be aware of both and be aware that their choices have consequences.
Right.
And that's why I think that education is a national security issue. When you have other countries who are teaching history as it happens, there are other countries that teach propaganda. In New Hampshire, I hosted some Chinese exchange students. They were only here for a week, but and it was during the 2016 election, which was interesting because I was running in an office for one of the candidates as a volunteer, and the students were just flabbergasted. They were really surprised by the process and a lot of things that went on. And I just fell in love with these girls. It was 3 girls, and they cried when they left. They went to get on the bus and they cried because they just
Wow.
they had such a good time. I've not been able to keep in touch with them because, the situation with getting mail to and from China is not the best. So
Yeah.
I often wonder where those girls are now because they were sophomores in high school.
Ah.
They're adults now. And I wonder, did they survive the pandemic?
Mm.
That's
Um,
interesting.
What is happening with their families? But anyway, I digress.
That's okay, because we're going to move into what I would like to go is into all of your public service. You've touched on so much of it, even though I've tried to stop you because I wanted to stay focused on, you've done so much as a mom, a community member, a person that just cares about their community, where they live and how it operates. And I wanted to just really, I want you to talk about, if you don't mind, before we move into public service, let's talk about community service. How important is your community to you?
Well, I think that at this time of my life, now that my children are raised, there was a time my first marriage fell apart, and I was a single mom for 8 years. And 6.5 of those years I spent here in Cape Coral. I worked 3 jobs while I was going to school, and it was all I could do to get through the day. I didn't have time to be thinking about on a higher level. I was thinking about the next few minutes and, getting through this job so that I could pick up my child and make sure I had daycare, because sometimes my parents would help out and sometimes they wouldn't. And so, in juggling all of this. So now that that I have the time, well, my husband has a good job. I've been fortunate with my real estate business that we've been able to supplement, but we primarily rely on my husband's income. And we both believe that it's important that we make a difference because we believe any individual can make a difference. You can make that decision, make that choice to say, okay, this part of my community is important to me. My husband's degree is in technical theatrical arts. So he likes getting involved with plays. He does sound, he does lights. When my youngest studied at a serious ballet school. It was an RAD school, and they would put on a semi-professional Nutcracker every year where we would have guest artists from the American Ballet Theater out of New York. She would bring guest artists from England, from South Africa, from Chile. She always had an orchestra. So the students would learn to dance, even the littlest students. Mary was, I want to say she was 4, the first Nutcracker that she was in. And, they progressed. They knew like what role they were hoping to get next year. I think the last year she did it because she didn't want to go on point. So that ended her ballet career. But she was a Polly Chanel, which was one of her favorite. But one year she was the little mouse. I don't know how familiar you are with the Nutcracker, but the little mouse that they run around and, that gets stabbed and they take the stretcher and run them off. Mary did that one year, but Alan did the lights. And so we've done this. Most of what we do, my husband is very supportive. We do as a family. Our family unit is very, I think it's important to support each other, even when you don't necessarily agree. I'm very proud of my two oldest children. My oldest is a neonatal nurse practitioner at Boston Children's Hospital.
Okay.
She saves lives for a living. Her husband, my son-in-law, is an associate editor at the Boston Business Journal.
Wow.
And they are the parents of my very dapper 5-year-old grandson, who's a pill, but he's adorable. And then my son is in Ohio. He's fiercely independent. He is making his own way, and he does not want help from mom and dad. Thank you very much. I respect that.
Yeah.
As a mother, it can be painful at times, but I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him for standing up and saying, you know what? He was on a trajectory. He was in all these accelerated classes and studying materials engineering. And he said, no, I don't want to spend my life doing this. So he made the decision to go off in another direction. And he's now married also. And then my youngest is, like I said, she spent a lot of time studying the arts, but she loves science. And so she's studying botany. She'll be headed off in the fall to Gainesville.
Wow.
So
Wow.
truly the empty nesters, which,
Yes.
that's okay. My children all know that they are always welcome in my home, no matter what. And
it sounds like you've had a beautiful, loving life. Not that you haven't had it easy, not that you've not had a roller coaster. That's
17 is awful. When the kids were 17, it's the most horrible year. All three of my kids, when they were 17, I began to question why I decided to have children. But
and I hear you, right? Because teenagers are, they're trying to figure it out too, right? For themselves through the north.
And I raised my children to be independent.
There you go.
And that carries into everything. That's why when I was in high school, I was friends with everybody. There were all these social groups, right? It was like the band geeks and the jocks and the kids who smoked pot.
Yeah.
And, all of these. And I was friends with everyone, because I think that people are interesting.
And I've been to your home, and a lovely home you have in Cape Coral. You fixed a beautiful meal.
Love to cook.
And yes, and we ate.
You can't come to my house and not let me feed you.
You see, and one of the first discussions that we had, it was my first time at your home, even though we had spoken many times and met each other and known each other. You spoke about your faith. And it's really important to you and how it is, a part of who you are. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I consider myself an ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church of American Lutheran, which is the most liberal synod of the Lutheran organization. Right now I'm attending an Episcopalian church. We're in full communion with them but my faith journey, I was not raised in any faith. I was not baptized until I was 25. I chose. And I've studied, I've done a lot of Bible study, and I'm not arrogant enough to believe that my faith is the only legitimate faith. I believe that the Lutheran doctrine that I was taught is we are to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, tend to the sick and dying, love one another, and love God above all. That's it. All this other stuff is man-made. All this other stuff is for God to decide. It's not for me to judge anyone about anything. And I also, and along with that is I respect if someone has a different faith or no faith.
Mm.
My father has said to me, I wish that I could have belief, that I could have faith, but he just can't see it. And that's okay. He's a good man. It's just for me. For me, I know that um, I I have released my life to my faith and said, let me be a vessel. And that way, um, before I speak, before I meet with people, I always say my little prayer, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, our Lord. Now, I don't believe in God as a puppet master up there. Oh, terrible things happen because God made them happen. I don't happen to believe that. That's not my faith. My faith is that God gives us free will and that we, bad things do happen to good people, but God uses, if you're a person of faith, that you are provided with guidance when you ask, and that God can be your solace in these dark and difficult and terrible times. Because at the end of the day, death is not the worst thing that can happen to a person. If you're a person of faith and you believe that you will be, your spirit is reunited, well, it's not something to fear or to dread. And Martin Luther said you don't have to do good works you can't earn your way into heaven, but a good person is going to want to do good works. And so that's kind of been that faith part has been a guiding principle for me. But there's this other, when I was one of those jobs I worked as a single mom, I went into this office, I was an admin. And I went into the office and there was this piece of paper. It was anonymous. It was just thumbtacked to the wall. And it really touched me. And it's I'm going to read it to you if that's okay.
That's fine.
It's in my office here. And it says, press on. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education alone will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. And I think that combined with my belief that I am loved and that I have a sincere heart. I make mistakes. I say cruel things, do things that are unclean. It's human nature. You acknowledge it. You do the best that you can to fix it, and then you move on because I'm forgiven. Because I am flawed. I'm a flawed human, just like everyone else. And I try to remember that with other people too. And can I segue that into my philosophy?
Hold on a minute.
Please?
I'm going to give you a lot of time to talk about your public service.
Because it segues right into it about why I.
Yes, everything that we've discussed is a segue into your public service. And that's why I wanted to get into everything before we got to the public service part.
All right.
Because
what is your next question?
The way you view education, the way you view how important it is for our economy, for our society, for our participation in the world economy, as a matter of fact, the way you
our national security. We need to be on the cutting edge because we need to be the economic power as well as the scientific advancement for our safety.
And the way the arts are playing into that and actually accentuate that is also critical. And that's a huge part of our country, even though it's controlled on a local level. There's always something that the federal level can offer to the local level to grab onto to improve if they don't have the budget on the local level to do so. And I'm throwing this out here for a reason.
Okay.
Right? because you're running for office for Congress.
Yes,
That's a
U.S. House of
federal,
Representatives.
right, in the House of Representatives in the area of Lee County, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Naples, portions of it, right? Is that right? And
Cape Coral to Marco Island.
here we go. The federal level doesn't control local politics, so per se, but it
Correct.
can influence it, it can assist in it, it can offer to it in some degree, and it can also
Collaborate.
collaborate. There we go.
You need to be able to collaborate with local officials.
And that means you have to walk across the aisle.
Absolutely.
When you were in politics and ran for office as this mom that cared, this community member that cared in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
One of the things that was really stuck out to me as I was reading your bio, you ran in a Republican area as a Democrat. You used to actually be a Republican and moved to a Democrat position because of what your value systems are and your beliefs were at that time. But you ran and got elected in a Republican area. You got the respect of your Republican colleagues. You operated not for party, but for people.
Yes.
That hasn't changed. So now you're running for Congress. Do not discuss your opponent or anything about your opponent. I want you to talk about you. I don't want to hear your platform that everyone gets to hear when you're on stage at an event. I want you to really delve.
But it's real. If I
No.
was inauthentic, that would be relevant.
That's not what I mean. I just don't want the speech. I want an in-depth conversation on why you're running for office.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Now it's your turn. Tell me in depth. Why are you really running for office, Kari? Why is it important for you to win?
I'm really running for office because I mean, when I moved home in 2019, the plan was to just really jump into the real estate and enjoy my time here. We're into boating. My husband was a sailor. He not a Navy sailor, but he was living on a 36-foot ketch in Annapolis Harbor when I met him. He just loves to sail. And there was, the sailing season is this long in New Hampshire. So he stuck it out in New Hampshire with me for 20-some years. So that was a big part of the move as well. And I got here and I saw the water. The Caloosahatchee River is a waterway. It's part of the intercoastal that goes from the East Coast. You come into Port St. Lucie, which goes into Lake Okeechobee, and then water goes from there out to, through the Caloosahatchee, and it used to flow south into the Everglades. But U.S. sugar and agricultural concerns, well, first thing they did was when they built Alligator Alley, that stopped a lot of the flow.
And Alligator Alley is a freeway for those who are.
It is the highway that goes from the East Coast to the West Coast. It goes across the Everglades. It's about 2 hours from Naples to Miami, straight across the state. And there's nothing but Everglades there. There is a reservation there. You can stop. But if you have to go to the bathroom, you better hit that station because it's going to be a long shot across the state. But anyway, so I guess this is getting kind of in depth, but the Caloosahatchee River, they control. Lake Okeechobee is a shallow lake that is surrounded by agricultural land. And these huge mega ag companies, these ag corporations, have controlled the water around there. They've basically controlled, through the Army Corps of Engineers, they've controlled all the projects. Port St. Louis, on the other side, on the East Coast side, they don't want any of the water from Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee this time of year is full of toxic algae. It's full of way too many nutrients. It's, and they control the level. The lake will rise. This is the rainy season in Florida. And we're getting towards the end, but it's still the rainy season. And the lake will rise to a certain level. and then they release water. Now, the reason they hold water in there is during the dry season, the agriculture, they want to be able to use that water to irrigate their fields.
Right.
Because the thought is, well, why not just let nature take its course? And wouldn't that be better? It would naturally flush out. The grasses would grow back. The water could flow into the Everglades. Well, the Everglades, they don't want the water as it is because it's so overfilled with agriculture waste, with too many nutrients, too much fertilizer, too much animal waste. And so it would be toxic to the native plants, the sawgrasses and whatever that are in the Everglades. So it rises, and during the Caloosahatchee River needs some of that fresh water to maintain the salinity level. If the salinity gets too high on through the Caloosahatchee River, then we're going to lose a lot of the grasses and whatever that way. But what's happened is they overcompensate. So there's nothing coming out, and the water rises and it rises, and you have these certain types of grasses and whatever that grow. And then when it gets to this level, they're like, oh, we got to do a release. And you've probably seen photos where you can see this beautiful seafoam green color water, and you've got this nasty foamy line of brown, nasty water. They just dump it through the river, comes through.
What do you want to do about that? What do you want to do about that?
Well, they keep talking about projects. There was, when Christie was governor, he had a plan where there were tens of thousands of acres that the state was set to buy, and was going to be used to filter the water to go back into the Everglades. They were going to, filter in a natural way through native plants and be able to filter through that water, so there wouldn't be such that push of this water that it would give an opportunity for the flora and fauna to recover but as soon as the next governor came in, trashed the plan, sold off the acreage, just decimated it. And
so what do you want to do? What are you going to do?
What I want to do is I want to be on the Army Corps of Engineers subcommittee. That is one of someone asked me, what committees do you want to be on? I really care about the Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA. I think that those are two areas. Last May, I went to DC and sat in on their subcommittee hearings for their budget proposals for fiscal year 2025. And what I learned is that there are grants available. There's money available. The individuals who run these administrations are administrative, departments. They are more than willing and happy to work with anyone who has a plan and who can bring, there are resources there available. And we haven't had a member of Congress who has been willing to do the work and fight for us.
So what you're saying,
someone who's willing to, but you have to negotiate, I'm a realtor. I negotiate, you have to have someone who's willing to work with whomever they need to work with to get the result you want. As a realtor, you don't always like your client. You don't always like when you're working with a buyer, you may not necessarily, like the seller or vice versa. I do mostly listings these days because I've been a realtor so long. So, sometimes it can be, but it's your job once you come under agreement. It is your job on behalf of your client to see that deal closes. It's the same thing in when you're serving. It translates very well to serving your community as a legislator, as a state legislator. It was important to me to do the work, you don't just file a bill and step back and say, okay, I filed that bill. Aren't I, let's toot my horn and haven't I done a great job? No,
Mhm.
you haven't done anything. You file the bill. It goes through legal and then it goes to committee.
Mm.
And when it's in committee, if it's sitting there, it's your job to say, hey, what about that bill? You go to the chair and you say, what about that bill? What is the delay? What is the hang up? What can I do? Do you need more information? How can we get this bill to move through, at least come to a voting committee? Let's find out where we're standing with it instead of just languishing in committee. And if that doesn't work, then you start talking to the committee members.
So you're
Eventually.
telling me that you understand how to collaborate, to join in and bring partnership on legislation that is important for Florida,
Our district.
in your district, for
But
the
you can't
water.
do that if
For
you're
the water.
calling colleagues names, if you're calling them swamp thingies or vermin or bullying them and
Right,
something
well,
else, you're not going to get any
Right.
success on any bills.
We understand that you can't be the enemy and
Right.
get partnership, right? Gotcha. But you also said not only do you want to be on the committee for the Army Corps of Engineers, but for FEMA. Now
Mhm.
that's really important because this is information that a lot of people aren't familiar with that live in other parts of the country. Why is FEMA so important for you to be on that?
Well, see, it's important actually, not just, it's emergency management. It's not just about responding to immediate emergencies, although that is a main part of it. But FEMA also manages projects. There are projects and grants available to build resilience into the infrastructure in areas that are prone to certain types of disasters. There are, there is an individual who is, well, I don't want to go into that.
Well, let's say this. Why is it important that you be on FEMA for Florida? Because we know Florida has hurricanes. What's going on that makes it important for building resilience?
Well, building resilience into the infrastructure not only helps with disaster preparation, but it also is going to help reduce your insurance costs, your homeowner's insurance costs, because it reduces the overall risk. There are between FEMA and infrastructure, there's money that you can build resilience into your infrastructure from tax incentives, building it into your home, building it into your business, and communities, building into the community, building some resilience into the water and sewer situation. I mean, you have to, and it's not just Florida and our hurricanes, it's California and their wildfires and earthquakes, and it's tornadoes in the Midwest. But there are things that can be done that can help mitigate that when the next storm comes around, the next tornado hits, the next earthquake comes. If you built resilience into your infrastructure, I mean, you're in California. You know that they built flexibility into those high rises so they can withstand being shaken in earthquakes. And they're not all just going to collapse the minute the earth shakes.
Right.
That idea is expandable. But for many communities, it's beyond the scope of their ability to manage these projects. So I'm not saying, oh, geez, there's all this money. Let's just go grab it. And, here, let's just pass out some free money. That is not what we're looking at, is to save homes, businesses, and lives. We lost a lot of lives with Hurricane Ian.
Yeah, we did.
Here in Southwest Florida. And so we want to make sure that never happens again. And the federal government can be a wonderful partner with local communities, but everyone needs to be willing to do that. But I think if you come as the member of Congress, one of my first things that I'll do will be to meet with leaders in, bringing in all the stakeholders. We have a $1.1 billion grant from HUD that we were awarded in Lee County after Hurricane Ian to and what the county commissioners learned as they did a study was it needed to be $10 billion, that the $1.1 billion was a good start. But let's continue that. Let's not wait until the next disaster. I've always believed in being proactive rather than reactive. You always are going to save money. You're going to save lives. Let's do the work now.
What I'm hearing from you is that because you have a history of working across the aisle,
Yes.
you know what it takes to get things done. You know how government operates because you've been a part of it. You've been a part of the legislative process. This is not new for you.
Correct.
You do not get on a box, if you will, and scream out that everybody's your enemy.
Yeah.
What you're doing is
Doesn't
you're getting on the stage and you're saying, let's figure out how we can work together because we need to get things done.
And I will tell you that I do hear from people. They'll say they're skeptical. They'll say, number one, well, there's a lot of people to have to work with. Well, New Hampshire has 400 state representatives. So there's not such a big leap from that to to Congress. But there are individuals today who are in Congress and who are in the Senate, most specifically, who have spent their lives working across the aisle.
Yeah.
There was Senator Jane Shaheen, the senior senator from New Hampshire. I know her really well. And she was one of the architects of the immigration bill that was hammered out with Republicans. It's the most conservative immigration policy that had ever been presented. And yet she was able to get people on, just back and forth over months upon months. And she and her team, it wasn't just her, there were other senators.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it points. They had the numbers, they had the votes.
Right. I remember
and
that.
It was with John. So for political purposes, for
Right.
political theater. So, but you don't give up. You say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Vice President Harris said when asked about immigration, she said she wants to revive that.
Okay.
It is a good middle of the road. Most people don't live over here or most people are right smack dab in the middle. Most people want to be able to support their family with dignity. Most people aren't looking for handouts. They're looking for investment for a leg up. Where do we invest? Do we invest in our young people, in their education? Do we invest in our small businesses? Or do we throw money at obsolete, highly profitable industries that may be donating millions of dollars to your campaign? That's unfortunately that is kind of where some of the members of our federal legislature, that's where they are.
Yeah.
And I think that every time, this is not new in our history. This has happened over our history. It happened, right before the Civil War. It happened right before the stock market, the big Great Depression. It happened right before World War II again. And then it happened during the McCarthyism era. And it happened, and then it happened in the Vietnam era, where somehow our personal liberties and our rights had been eroded by money and corruption and what have you. And every single time, the American people got to a point and they said, that's it. Enough.
And we're there. And
we are there.
This
election is that time. This is the opportunity. I'm hearing from Republicans. I'm hearing from people with no party affiliation. I'm hearing from Democrats. Democrats that are willing to concede some of their, most valued talking points in order to bring Americans back together to heal the divide.
Right.
There are some who are benefiting by the divide. They get a lot of media attention because they say and do outrageous things. That doesn't mean they're respected. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that they actually have real power. And so I just think this election, I think we're ready as Americans. I believe that we are ready. It is a government by the people, for the people. It's not something over there that happens to you. It's something that we, the people, create. And we do have decent, viable candidates who are out there who are willing to actually serve you, not just build their own careers, but who are willing to serve you and do what is necessary to re-strengthen our democratic republic.
And I thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared today with us. We're getting close to wrapping up, but there's one thing,
Okay.
and I forgot to tell you this. There's one thing that every guest must do. So,
I'm ready.
yes, you have to reveal something that you've never told anyone in public. It could be you've told friends or family members, but something you've never revealed in public. It can be as simple as one guest said she's been in finance her entire life, and she was asked to do a stand-up comedy routine, and that was her reveal, right? Because it was happening that following week. So it doesn't have to be something big or something like, come on, you gotta spill the
I got
truth.
it. I got it.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So in my early 20s, I was working as a bartender at Cape Cod, and I had a dear friend who built sets and props in New York City. He owned Variety Scenic Studios and Empire Stages, which is located, that it doesn't exist anymore, located in Long Island City.
Okay.
And so I would come to New York and I would get to see plays all the time, and plays when they would come to Boston, he would get me tickets. I could go, got to sit in the house seats and watch plays. And sometimes I got to know some of his employees. So at one time I saw a show, I saw Ringling with sitting next to Spotlight. And that was when it was on Broadway. But I did Pack of Lies, started out in Boston, and I saw it in Boston, and I got to know the guy who ran the soundboard. And so when it made it to Broadway, I came backstage with him, and I was sitting with him, and he let me, it was a soundboard. So, you push a button and the phone would ring, or you push a button and the doorbell would ring, and what have you. So he let me, with the pencil tip, I got to play Broadway. I pushed P72 and the phone rang. So I could play.
You've played Broadway right here on Elevate Today. Kari Lerner has revealed that she played Broadway. All right. This is it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, that's been amazing. Now, is there anything that you didn't say that you want to leave us with moving forward at the end of the show? Because that's where we are.
Yes, it's really important to me that people understand your vote is your power. Don't give up your power. Don't let others make decisions for you. Register and vote. Because Ann Richards, who was a bawdy old broad, who was the Democratic governor of Texas for many years, she would always say, your vote is your seat at the table. And if you don't have a seat at the table, then you may very well be on the menu. So use your power. You do have power. Many of these elections come down to 1 or 2 or 5 votes per precinct, which is nothing. And don't be afraid that you're going to make a mistake. It doesn't take much. We all have one of these, 10 minutes. You Google some reputable sites, look up who your candidates are, and just take the time, because your life may very well depend on who gets elected. So
thank you. Thank you. And so register to vote is really important, everyone. Use your voice. Your voice is your power. Kari, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to look forward to our pre-show. It's going to be live. And there, you're going to have carte blanche to say a lot of different kind of things, and people might even question and it's a Q&A.
All right, that'd be great. I will answer. That's something I always did. I did
Okay.
it. I would tell people, I'm going to be at this place. You could come yell at me. You can come beg me. You can come tell me what your
All
needs are, what you think I should do, because everyone's voice matters. It matters.
I know that with you is a real honest statement. You're sincere. I know your heart. I am no longer living in Florida, but I can guarantee you that all of my family supports you in Florida, Kari Lerner. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show. Please tune in every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everybody in between, you know your hours and how you fit. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.